Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Senator Sharon Moriwaki, and with me is Speaker Scott Psyche. We're here to present and hear from the Kamehameha Schools Group and also from the Kobayashi Group on the new development that's being planned on Oahe Street, Ala Moana Boulevard, actually, and Oahe Streets. With us today, and we're really pleased to be able to hear from both Serge Kubasi and Matthew Panaz today. And we'll have questions and answer period, and then we'll close for the next hour. We are looking forward to hearing about the project. We are looking at 800 and 900 Ala Moana Boulevard, and it kind of fronts on Oahe Street, yeah. So they can tell us more about the specifics of the project, but it's a mixed-use commercial and residential development with a 39-story tower, approximately 443 market rate condo units and 40 reserve housing units. And they'll tell us about how they can get away with 40 units of reserve housing in Kakaako. And we look forward to hearing from them. So starting off with Serge Kubasi from Kamehameha Schools to tell us about how it fits in the Kamehameha Schools master plan.
Sure, mahalo, Senator. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully I don't mess this up. Okay, let's try this again here. We had this the first time around. One sec, let me try this again.
Well, maybe you could talk through it unless you've got the block and where it is.
Okay, here, let me try this one more time. I pressed on something wrong, I think.
We can enjoy your backdrop.
There we go. Can everybody see that?
No, not yet.
No. Oh, there.
How about now?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Second time's a charm.
Okay, very good.
Appreciate it. Just a matter of introduction, and I appreciate the time this afternoon. My name is Serge Kubasi. I'm a Director of Planning and Development at Kamehameha Schools. Here to share a little bit about our master plan in Kakaako. Kamehameha Schools is the legacy of Princess Bernice Pauahi Bishop. The Princess' vision was to improve the capability and well-being of people of Hawaiian ancestry through education. So in 1887, she founded Kamehameha Schools, named after her great-grandfather, King Kamehameha I. So as part of Kamehameha Schools' mission, her mission was to create education in perpetuity for people to improve the capability and well-being of people of Hawaiian ancestry. So as part of that, we're committed to fulfilling the Princess's vision through our 25-year strategic plan. This plan was established in 2015. It's called Vision 2040, where our goal is not only to educate children, but also to develop a thriving lahui. And the goal is within a generation of 25 years to see a thriving lahui where our learners achieve post-secondary educational success, enabling good life and career choices. We also envision that our learners will be grounded in Christian and Hawaiian values and will be leaders who contribute to their communities, both locally and globally. So as part of this efforts, our educational impact is fairly far-reaching, both on our campuses and in the community. Last year, we've served over 38,000 plus learners, and nearly 7,000 of those are on our campuses and our preschools. And the total investment last year was about $438 million in education. And this also, gets spread out between the campuses and preschools, as well as scholarships and community education, investing in other support services and projects. So Aalia Kakaako is an example of how Kamehameha Schools uses its lands to further the Princess's mission. When approved in 2009, the vision statement for Aalia Kakaako and the Kaiulu o Kakaako Master Plan was to create a progressive 21st century living community, acting as a catalyst for innovation and nurturing the evolution of a vibrant urban island culture within a beautiful, healthy, and sustainable neighborhood. During the past 12 years, we believe we've achieved this goal. We've been working with our development partners to successfully create a unique urban island community with a progressive vibe that celebrates art, culture, history, and sustainability. We are working to build a pedestrian-friendly, walkable neighborhood with diverse housing options for local families and young professionals, as well as inviting shops, restaurants, and open spaces. So our Kakaako Master Plan was approved by Hawaii Community Development Authority, which we often refer to as HCDA, in 2009. It includes 9 full block parcels, these blocks here in orange. It was initially planned for 2,750 residential units and about 300,000 square feet of commercial space. Development commenced on the Ewa side of the district. So essentially kind of worked from our way Ewa to Diamond Head. And generally, while KS will develop and hold for rent product like SALT or the Flats of Pu'unui, if a project involves providing condominium units for sale, KS will select development partners on a block by block basis who, working closely with Kamehameha Schools, are responsible for all phases of project development. So far, we've done 7 projects have been completed as part of Increment 1. These range from the conversion of older office building into affordable rentals at 680 Ala Moana to high-rise condominium projects such as the Collection in Kehoe Place. SALT has also been an interesting addition as the neighborhood's flagship retail complex, providing a variety of unique food and beverage options, and is home to popular restaurants such as Highway Inn, Bevy, Moku Kitchen, Morning Brew, and Takako. So to date, these 7 projects were built on 4 blocks, which have been fully developed, 1,336 new residential units, of which about 34% are considered affordable workforce housing, meeting the state's definition of affordable housing. We've also developed over 184,000 square feet of commercial space and about 50,000 square feet of open space. So that's the past. Now, moving forward into Increment 2, these are the blocks on the Diamond Head side of Coral Street. There are 5 blocks. They range in size from 2.1 to 4.2 acres. And as our goal continues to be to provide a diversity of housing options, we envision the larger blocks, these blocks C and D on this side here, to be developed with affordable workforce housing projects. These blocks will likely be developed under the state's 201H affordable housing program, which allows you to provide more units than would normally be allowed if more than 50% of the project's units meet the state's affordability guidelines. So on Block C, we have a project right now that's planned for about 859 units, of which 60% of those will be affordable. The smaller 3 blocks, blocks G, H, and I fronting Ala Moana Boulevard, will likely be market rate housing. And Kobayashi Group, which we're talking about today, is working on this Block I project here. And we'll be talking about that very shortly. Similar to Increment 1, most of these projects will be advanced by other parties working closely with the Kamehameha Schools. All of these projects are anticipated to include ground floor commercial space, which Kamehameha Schools hopes to hold and retain in order to maintain kind of a cohesive retail environment in Aalia Kakaako. So we're trying to create a shopping district in this area that Kamehameha Schools will own and operate for years to come. Cook and Oahe Streets This is Cook going Makai, and Oahe goes east-west, are the main roadways in increment 2. We envision the intersection of Cook and Oahe be kind of the central focal point of the district. We often call it the pico of the neighborhood. There'll be ground floor retail spaces along both sides of Cook and Oahe, and really with the large setbacks on Cook Street and Oahe Street will have setbacks as well. These streets will be heavily landscaped, and the goal is to create a very comfortable pedestrian walking environment, as well as a place where people feel comfortable hanging out outdoors, enjoying outdoor dining and shopping. Also, a big part of this neighborhood will be about a 25,000 square foot plaza area open to the public on the corner. This would be in the Makai Eva corner of Block D. This will have a stage area, performance area, and will be a place where people can come down, hang out, and we'll have listen to Hawaiian music or have hula shows and things of that nature. So really trying to get people outside of the buildings and down to enjoy the outdoor areas of the neighborhood. So in summary, this is kind of a vision of what, when we came up with this master plan, what it could look like. Our goal is for our Kakaako is to create, is to help provide a better future for residents of Honolulu by creating new places for people to live, work, dine, shop, and visit. Kamehameha schools, along with its development partners, are working to build housing for diverse income levels of people near jobs, parks, and shopping. With the goal of being this to be a pedestrian environment, and people don't need to drive as much, but can either jump on the rail to go work nearby or ride bicycles or commute fairly easily. And by keeping the commercial components of each project and considering the perpetual nature of our trust, we plan on being in our Kakaako for many, many years. So with that, I'd like to mahalo you for listening, and happy to answer some questions at the end of the presentation, but I will turn it over to Matt of Kobayashi Group to talk a little bit about Alia, Block I.
Well, mahalo, Serge.
Mahalo.
And thank you, Senator Moriwaki and Speaker Saiki, for this opportunity to present. A little bit of background on Kobayashi Group. My name is Matthew Panaz. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Kobayashi Group. We've been a family-owned and run business for the last 25 years, have done over $4 billion in real estate solely in the state of Hawaii in that period of time. We are a Kamehameha company through and through. Every single one of us that works for this company was born and raised in Hawaii, and so we have a very intense connection to what we do in the community and the types of projects that we build. And before I start, I do want to say that one of the commitments that we made in the last 2 years was that for every market unit housing that we develop, that we build, we are building one affordable housing unit as well, as a commitment to the community. Let me share the screen here. You see that? Okay. So the project is on, as Serge just mentioned, the Kakaako Block I. The name of the project is Alia. Alia in Hawaiian means salt pan, and we worked very closely with the Kamehameha Schools Ho'okahua team to come up with a name that really resonated with the location and with the history of the site, and with the intention of what we're trying to do here in the project. Location, if you can see from the overview in Kakaako, is right on the borderline of Auahi Street, Ala Moana, and Ko'ula Street. You can see it right here. It's about 3.5 acres, and it's a very wide block site, and I'll get into that in a little bit later. But it allows us to do some unique design on this building that we otherwise wouldn't do with maybe more of a square or a Malcolm Mackay facing building. Just to give it in context where our building lies, again, with some of the other existing buildings or the buildings that have been approved to be planned, Ulana, the Howard Hughes project is Malka across the street. Victoria Place is coming up right now, and Waiea exists. So we're over on this side of Kakaako. I believe Serge just talked through the Block I site as well. So we're here as part of the Kaialua Kakaako master plan. The project itself has a total of 483 units. 437 of them are in the tower superstructure itself. There are 6 market rate loft units that are along Ko'ula Street and 40 reserved housing units that are along a mid-rise on the block. I know a lot of people are curious about the reserved housing component and how that works with this building. The reality is you need 20% of total unit count on a site like this of your overall units. Kamehameha Schools had already completed several reserve housing projects and were awarded credits. You can transfer credits among some of these projects within the Alia Kakaako master plan. So they had them available already in place and for sale. We've had a mixture. We could have done the whole site with only reserved housing credits and made this a pure market rate building. But again, we felt that it was important to at least build a portion of the building with actual units that would come in and be built for the community. There's a small retail component, about 3,900 square feet, located along the corner of Awaki and Ko'ula streets. There is an archaeological preserve and cultural layer preserve that we've done some extensive work with. There is some iwi kupuna that was found on site. So we've actually set aside about 15,000 square feet as an archaeological and cultural preserve in perpetuity that would just be for that use. And we've had extensive consultation with SHPD and OIBC, and almost all of the required documentation is done there. We've got a little bit left to do in terms of historic data recovery prior to being able to start on this, but we've tried to work very closely with the cultural descendants from the Ahapua'a here and work towards an agreeable treatment and respectful treatment of the iwi kupuna that we found on site. I have some 3D renderings and overviews. We do have a large photovoltaic component that's on both sides of the buildings. This shows the mid-rise component with some storage in the lofts and then the retail on the ground floor here as well. This gives some overview from a ground floor plan of some of the uses. Interior amenity, there's a right turn in, right turn out off of Ala Moana Boulevard, and then also loading right turn in, right turn out off of Ala Moana Boulevard. Those are all existing curb cuts. Ko'ula Street is a private street that's actually owned by Kamehameha Schools, and so some of the thoughts there was to make it a little bit more pedestrian oriented, potentially do some events. And then on this side, on the Mauka side along Oahe Street, there's an existing city and county of Honolulu base yard that's run by Department of Facilities Maintenance. DFM is intending to relocate that base yard by the end of this year, and we've been in touch with them and getting updates. After that happens, after the base yard is relocated, we've been in contact with Department of Transportation Services and Traffic Review Branch at the city and county. They've agreed to open that pathway up through as a east-west connector through Kakaako, and we'll be improving that both from a pedestrian and from a vehicular standpoint. I know there were some questions about pedestrian access or public uses. Our intention is to have this entire arrival experience pathway underneath the podium be open and public. So there is a mid-block pass through here, as well as bike-friendly options. The retail along this corner has extensive outdoor seating. And then right Mauka of all these visitor stalls, we've been working with HCDA in preparation for our application to create a public facility here. So this is intended to be outdoor seating. You've got some food truck options here that are called out. You'll have some awnings and extensive landscaping as well, and that's intended to be open for the public use. This is just a high-level sectional of the building. If anybody has any questions on this, I'm happy to bring this up again down the line. And then a little bit more detail on how the reserved housing, lofts, and storage components are in plan view versus the elevation views. The ground floor has the retail, extra tall retail space. I think we're up to 19 feet on the ground floor. Two-story loft type unit where you've got a ground floor and then a mezzanine space. and then storage units that are on this corner at Ala Moana Boulevard and Oahe Street with the reserved housing above it. This is the deck with the PV panels. We've got a extensive great lawn, dog park area, some cabana space for the resident use. And then we've got a very unique tower plan for this building. It changes depending on the floor plate. So you actually have these undulating outdoor lanais that change a little bit. So it really gives a very unique aspect to the building, but it also plays a very important role as to one of the reasons why we built this building. And it's because in our intention for this building for Aalia, we want it to be the most sustainable high-rise in the history of the state of Hawaii. The orientation of the building is towards the northeast. We want to use trade winds to the maximum extent possible. The way that the lanais are situated shows some of the openings that can come in for the trade winds, minimize the usage of air conditioning and do natural ventilation. The overhangs are different on the Makai and Diamond Head side of the building than they are on the Ewa Mauka side of the building. That's because of the solar heat gain coefficiencies that you gain from it. So the lanais shading, you can kind of see a heat map of where we were able to extend those lanais just on that portion of the building. What that allows you to do, again, is to minimize the amount of air conditioning that's going to have to be used in the building. You can see the solstices and the equinox here at kind of where we think that the light is going to land in a typical unit on the building. We also are looking at wastewater reuse components through R1. We've been extensively working with the Department of Health and with certain companies to recycle water on site and try and minimize our water usage and water impact here significantly, as well as any kind of discharge as well into the sewer system. That's my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
We have questions from constituents, I think, so maybe you could answer some of that. But if you could talk about a little bit about the affordable housing part of it, because I think that's where a lot of people would like to know that there are residents that can afford living
Sure.
here and your sustainable building. So
sure, these are a little bit of unique. We want to call them like junior one-bedroom units. They're consistent, but they kind of key into each other. It's a little bit hard to see. I don't actually have the slide ready and available, but they're great units, probably averaging around 500-600 square feet. We haven't determined pricing on them yet, but it will be between 100 to 120 AMI likely at this point. We'll go through the HCDA process for the reserved housing components as to when they would actually be available and for sale. I think we've got Carson on available. He might be able to help answer that, but if it's a lottery system, we'll work with that. If it's a different system, we'll work with that at the time.
So just to clarify, then your affordable housing or reserve housing, although minimal, they are going to be at less than the 120% AMI. Are you saying it's 100% AMI?
We haven't determined
what
the
is
pricing
the
yet.
income?
We haven't determined the pricing yet, Senator, but we'll be working within the range of reserved housing.
Okay.
The viewers can also chat questions if you want to submit a question through chat. But I don't see any right now. Hey, Matthew,
We've got some that came in prior to when our sale is going to start. Maybe this is premature because you haven't built it yet, but preferred real estate partner, preferred lender, those kinds of issues probably premature. Or have you been working on some of that?
Well,
on sales.
We are working on our sales office right now. We're looking to sign a lease shortly at a location, but part of this process, right, with going to HCDA and reaching out to the neighborhood boards, and I appreciate what you're doing here as well, is to listen to the community and to make adjustments to the plans as to how we're putting this together. So We're hoping by the end of the year, going through the HCDA process and getting that input. But I would hope by the end of the year, we'd be able to be the sale.
So when you're looking at market housing costs, I know that you're not able to talk about costs, but I think the community is interested. Here's a residential building coming up, whether they can afford the market rate versus the reserve housing rate that you have, but what can they look to in terms of your projections or intentions of the building, since it is one of the residential units that are coming up in the area? There's real interest in that.
There's no studios in the building. It's 1, 2, and a little bit of 3. There's, I think, the one stack 3 bedrooms. There's going to be a range of pricing. So the 1 bedrooms clearly will be in the low 7 figures, I would say, and then it modifies from there for a market rate. Part of what's driving some of these costs, and it's just amazing, we just got our pricing back last week with construction costs that have jumped 10% just in the last 6 months.
Did you already cover the time frame?
So we're hoping to go to sale by the end of this year. If all goes well, we hope to start construction by summer of next year, with completion in early 2026, late 2025.
Matthew, did the project already receive approval to close that portion of Cook Street?
Cook Street. I'm not sure about that, speaker. Maybe Serge can talk about
Kamehameha schools.
I don't think it's closing Cook Street at all.
Well, it's not. I thought.
Are you talking about Kula Street?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kula Street.
Kula Street?
Yeah, Kula Street.
And right now, we're not anticipating closing Kula Street. It's owned by Kamehameha Schools. We've got approval to, right now the plan is to keep it open and allow for vehicular access to it. But we're looking at different options associated with the roadway. But right now, the plan is to keep it open.
Okay.
Serge, just talking about Cook Street, I think there's a concern by a constituent of digging up and then paving over in front of the new. Now this is the new Queen Barbecue on the corner of Queen and Cook, and it's been like on and off, and wondering whether you're going to be revisiting that, leaving a steel plate like the other locations. Residents are kind of going crazy on the digging. Do you know anything about that?
Is that digging in the road?
Yeah, on Cook.
I'm not aware of anything that we're doing on Cook Street. Yeah.
So that's not Kamehameha Schools.
I don't believe so. We on one of the blocks, we've been doing some archaeological work, and actually it hasn't been us, it's been our developer partner. That's been, but that it's pretty much wrapped up. I don't think it was in the roadway itself. I know the city, we've been having discussions with DTS, and I know they're looking at repaving most of those roadways in the next, I think by the end of the year, they're hoping to, issue a notice to proceed based on recent discussions we had with DTS.
We have a chat question. Are there larger affordable housing units that will be available, such as 2-bedroom, 2-bath units for families on the reserve housing side?
So it's a little bit of an art, right? And if you make some of these 1-bedrooms bigger, you'll have fewer affordable housing units totally available, right? So we tried to target where the neighborhood would probably have the most need, right, for some working professionals, at least in this aspect for the design. We did just complete our Halekalele project, which is up off of P.E. Koi. That building, which is 30% to 60% AMI affordable, has pretty large 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom affordable units.
So, in terms of the reserve housing, what is the term? how many years?
It's a 10-year reserve housing
Is
period.
it 10 years?
We have a question. How will the energy from the PV panels be utilized, and how many EV charging stations will be available for residents and consumers?
The intention, I think, right now is to enter into a PPA with the association to purchase the electricity that comes there. And then we are intending to make this an extensive EV building. The entire building itself is all electric, so we're not using gas at all, and preparing for an all electric future for renewables and for sustainability.
Oh, do you have an idea?
Go ahead, speaker.
Is there an approximate number of charging stations that are being planned?
I think our target's 20% of parking.
So in terms of all of your sustainability efforts, that's all built in. Who's going to be operating the building once the building is constructed? Because I know that there may be concerns about how all of the maintenance charges and so on will be, especially among those who buy the reserve units.
Sure. So upon completion, we'll turn it over to the association. The association will create a board, and we'll work with them on the reserve studies and the maintenance requirements. I mean, I know there are a lot of buildings nowadays that have deferred maintenance issues, and it's always our intention in our buildings to make sure that the quality is maintained for the association moving forward. It's very difficult to do, but it's important for the residents in the long term.
Well, Matthew, sorry for the EV. If it's 20% of parking, what does that amount to? How many is 20% of parking stalls?
It's north of 150 stalls. That would be that's my estimate at this point.
Okay, so it's about 30 charging stations. Yeah,
part of this is flexibility and demand, right? So we want to be able to expand it in the future as we continue to adjust. So it's more of a question of how many are putting it up front. How do you manage that relative to the transformer, the electric infrastructure that goes in as well?
I read somewhere that you're allowing the public to also use those stalls, or how does that work, and how are you charging for the stalls? Are they going to be dedicated, or is it just like a bank of EV charging stations?
I don't think we've determined that yet at this point.
Okay, we have a question about whether the project will be affected by the Board of Water Supplies delay in construction, potential delay of construction permits.
Not at this time, no. We received a letter last week noting that the moratorium is not in place and would not be in place for this project.
Okay. Those are all the chat questions I see so far.
Back to Serge. Question: are we nearing the end of condo development in Kakaako? That's probably a bigger picture HCDA, but in terms of where Kamehameha Schools is on this, you had mentioned that there are other blocks. Some are commercial, residential, some are market. Can you just give us an overview of what's left on your plate after this block I?
Sure. Including block I, we have 5 remaining blocks. We envision all those blocks to be developed with residential mixed-use projects with commercial spaces on the ground floor and residential units above. Our goal is to have a mix of housing types. So as I mentioned earlier, some of the blocks will be focused on affordable workforce housing, while the blocks generally fronting Ala Boulevard will have market rate housing with some reserved housing within them. So that's so essentially we've got five blocks that to go, including the block I, the project that we're talking about today, Alia.
So in your total five more buildings, Some of them are market, some of them are mixed market workforce, affordable workforce, then market. And how does the credit system work? So it's the whole 5 buildings where you're going to have 20% that's affordable, and what might that look like in your buildings? Because some of them are all market, yeah.
Yeah, some may be all market, but the neat thing is, I mean, we've already in increment 1, we're already well above that 20% minimum requirement. We're at 34% reserved housing. We envision that we will still be over that 20% minimum, and our goal is to, we really are focused on diversity. So our goal is to have a higher level of affordable reserved housing than the minimum requirement. So the neat thing about it is with the blocks, blocks C and D are relatively large blocks. So there'll be larger projects and have a larger number of affordable workforce housing product, which will help balance out the neighborhood. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure what the exact percentage will be, but we feel like it's going to be well above that 20% minimum requirement.
Okay, since we're on the reserve housing topic, there's another chat question. It seems that if approximately 10% of the total units are assigned as affordable or reserve housing, then that percentage would include an equivalent cross section of all the marketplace size units being offered, which would be 1, 2, and possibly 3-bedroom units.
Well, yeah, according to size, different sizes. Right.
But is there a requirement at the HCA level for that equivalency?
George, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact rule on that, but I think because we also have credits, I think Kobayashi Group has a flexibility to, and this is probably a Carson HCDA question, but I think that's something they're going to look at between trading credits for the actual reserved units, how units being provided on site. And if they're going to require the same amount of credits to make up that difference to get that equivalency calculation in, not sure exactly how that works.
Yeah, is the credit based on a per unit basis, or is it based on the floor area?
It's generally based on a per unit basis.
Okay.
And it's based on the gross number, right? So in other words, if you have 500 units, you need 100 of them to be affordable, right? So if you build 400 market and 100 affordable. So if we go build a 400 unit building, you need 100 units, not 80. If that makes sense.
But not by size. So I mean,
Right.
It wouldn't be like 1 for 1, as the questioner said. 1 bedroom, 2 for 1 bedroom. It's just you could have all studios there.
So there's and then there's another question, another chat question on the pricing of the units. So if let's say the 1-bedroom unit is in the low 7 figures or close to $1 million for 1 bedroom, what kind of who's going to buy these units? What is the market for that? So
believe it or not, most of the people in this building are going to be local. This is targeted a local building. There's a lot of working professionals. There's a lot of families that we love to work for and work with, and in designing our towers. We get input from potential buyers. That's our target market, is the local resident. And I mean, I think Serge would agree. This site has always been meant as a luxury site. It's a front row property on the Kamehameha School's master plan. And so we're designing the tower to a level of commensurate with its location within the rest of the community.
We have a chat question on whether there will be any senior rentals.
In our building, no. I'm not sure about other blocks than your master plan, Serge.
We don't, none of the proposed projects that, or the developers we're talking to now, and further discussions with, are looking at senior rentals at this time.
So all of the rest are all for sale projects. Nothing
they're-
with rentals. They're your 4 other projects.
There
Okay.
may be, we have one developer that's looking at doing some affordable rentals as part of their project, their larger project. And there'll be, there's another developer looking at potentially doing market rentals. But nobody's, we're not looking at any, nobody's come to us looking to do senior rentals.
There's a question on sea level rise. You know, what are your plans, or how are you planning forward, because you are closer to the ocean than most, and a lot of the efforts now at the state side looking at climate change, sea level rise, and what do you look for, or how have you planned for it? And then the other question being, do you have any EPA, Environmental Protection Agency reports on the project site?
I think it's a great question about sea level rise, and it's something that as developers we deal with on a daily basis in how we look at projects. In this project in particular, what we can do is raise the site, which is what we're doing. We're raising it by anywhere from 2 to 3 feet across the entire project site. In regards to the question about the EPA, I'm not sure if I understand that, but we do have some extensive studies that have been done. Those will be part of our HCDA application that's coming up.
So when you build 2 or 3 feet above, there's nothing underneath, or what is going to be the 2 to 3 feet under? What?
So it's fill material. You'll add fill material and then compact and grade it.
So there'll be nothing there. You'll just build on top of it. You'll fill it, and then you build 2 or 3 feet higher. Is that
right? Right.
Basically bringing in dirt to make the site higher.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the piles, the auger cast piles that are going in will go down, hundreds of feet. So they'll be significantly lower than.
And your utilities and all of that will be what, higher on top of that, or some are putting it way up high?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I know sewer, for instance, is encased, right? That's not that can be underwater.
Electricity, mostly electricity,
yeah.
is affected by water. See any more questions, speaker?
I don't see any more chat questions. I kind of have just wants to share this. I was speaking with a constituent about a month ago who lives in a reserve unit, and this person's family's got larger. I think they had another child and wants to remain in Kakaako, and is looking for opportunities for a reserve unit that has more, it's probably a 2-bedroom kind of unit, a larger unit. So there are residents in reserve units who are looking for opportunities in Kakaako, and want, and who want to remain, within a reserve unit. So I just want to share that with everyone.
So how will you? A question, just building on that is, so you've got only 40 units. How are you going to? Is it by lottery, or how do you get your 40 among the hundreds that may want reserve housing?
I believe it's a lottery system, Senator. So yeah, we'll go through whatever process that HCDA lays out for us.
Okay, I'm sorry, Serge, you were going to say.
No problem. I was just going to say we do envision a variety of unit sizes being available, and some potentially other projects in our Kakaako, reserved units that would be 1 and 2 and possibly even 3-bedroom units, and possibly some of our other blocks.
It would be very helpful for our residents to have that kind of diversity in the units, and not just all because they're in reserve, their studio or it's 1 bedroom. but having 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms that are in your reserve housing pool. So if you can think through that, I think that would be really helpful to residents, because we're trying to keep residents here with, affordable housing. So, and especially in Kakaako, so we have a stable population base here.
Agreed.
Let's see, do we have any more questions?
Oh, there's a
No.
comment here.
Mm.
So I'll read this one. I'll read this. I applaud the intent to target housing for locals. It's sorely needed. I also recognize that a developer must make some sort of profit in order to fund other similar projects. However, this project seems short in providing homes for families. Sorry, it says don't need to ask the developer. Sorry.
It's okay,
Yeah, but-
they should
but
hear it. Yeah.
It goes to the whole point of making more reserve and different kinds of reserve units available.
I think just to point out, I think that's the neat thing about being part of a master plan. I mean, it'd be nice if every project was affordable. Unfortunately, the finances don't work that way, but the intent is that Kobayashi Group may not be meeting their minimum requirement there, but they're using credits from units that are being developed, a block away or 2 blocks away, or so within the area we're more than going to meet the affordable housing requirements. So it's a give and take. I think the idea and our vision is kind of look at the area as a whole, and our Kakaako as a whole versus each individual project site when looking for meeting the reserved housing requirements.
I think this question comes up all the time, but because everybody uses the term reserve housing or affordable housing, and then you see that it's really not. Can you give us a definition of what you're looking at when you're talking about, at least for the 40 units that you have in your building, what is, or at least the ballpark figure of what is reserve housing, affordable housing, so that people get an idea of what you're talking about? What is the cost? At least
even I get confused. So I think a lot of people get confused. It's, to my understanding, the reserved housing component is a definition under HCDA's rules. And because we're within the HCDA zone for Kakaako, that's the term that they use for their affordable component. There's also a workforce housing provision. And again, maybe if we want to bring Carson up here, if he's willing to talk through some of that. I know the affordability guidelines differ at so many levels. They differ in every county. Honolulu, they differ in Maui, they differ in Big Island. They differ with HHFDC and their numbers and what affordability actually is, and at the different numbers. So basically for this, reserved housing has to be between 100 and 140% of the AMI level. And that's a calculated number on HCDA's guidelines, which is different from HHFDC or DPPs, and must be reserved for 10 years.
So is somebody from HCDA to answer this Corey's question to know what is the cost or amount? If we say 100% AMI, what would it be in this time period? Because I know it differs year by year.
I think Carson left. I'm looking at the participant. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the HCDA definition of what the AMI is. Okay, I don't see any other questions. If anybody has questions, please put it in the chat. We can have the little surge. Or
what is the dollar amount now for 140% of AMI for a family of 4?
I think we just looked it up, and let me find it. So I think based on, I think it's around 130,000 for a family of 4. So the AMI is 113,000. And for a family of 4, it's adjusted to 130,000. For a single adult, it's adjusted to 91,000. And these aren't our numbers. These are the HUD numbers.
Great. I think those are all the chat questions.
That's it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Serge
Would you
and
like to?
Matthew, yeah, do you want to close with anything?
I just want to say that we're really excited to be part of the Kakaako community. I think we're doing the best we can to build a project that's going to be both beautiful and have an excellent experience for our residents and for the walkability for the community and the landscaping that's there. So appreciate any more feedback if anybody wants to reach out and contact. But thank you so much, Senator. Thank you so much, Speaker, for the time as well to be able to present this.
Thank you. Do we have an email or some kind of address so that if people do have questions, maybe you could put it in the chat, or Speaker, we could send it out so that
Yeah,
there
I'll
can
put it in the chat right now.
And I'll echo Matt's mahalos. Appreciate the time to present and talk story a little bit. I'll put in our contact. Our website is ourkakaako.com. Anything you want to know about Kakaako or have a question, there's a Q&A system in that on that website where you can ask questions. But we're excited about Alia coming to our Kakaako and looking forward to more projects and kind of improving this neighborhood and just adding more shops and restaurants and getting more people down there. So appreciate the time.
Thank you. Speaker, you want to close? Thank you all very much, and thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Serge. Appreciate your willingness to come and sharing and answering questions on the project.
Yeah, same here. Thank you, Matthew and Serge, for providing this information to the public. As you can see, the residents are interested in what is happening with this project. So we also want to thank all of the residents who participated tonight. You can also feel free to contact Senator Moriwaki or me if you have any questions or concerns about anything. So once again, thank you everybody for your time this evening. Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Aloha.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Aloha.
Bye.